Ah yes, look at this beauty. Look at what modern technology can bring us. Well, actually, probably not this. This is just for demonstration purposes, but this is what you want. You want to be able to interact with ChatGPT, don't you? Well, let me show you how. Alright, so let's just get right into it. We will be creating a new Unity project. I've already done this, so just make sure you have a version above 2019 and you should be fine. So while we're waiting on that to open, we can go to this GitHub repository that I'll be putting in the description, and we can already clone this HTTPS link, which we'll be needing later. So other things you need when you want to connect OpenAI to Unity is, of course, you're going to need an OpenAI account. So for that, just go to the OpenAI website, click on Developers, on Overview, and then up here you'll be able to create an account, log out in my case, and then once you've created your account, it's very important that you go to View API Keys and create your own API key. This will be a secret new key. You can name it whatever. I've called it Unity Test Key. And one thing to mention here is that this key will only be shown to you once. So once you've got that, you should probably copy that and put it into some secure file. I've just put it in a doc, which isn't very secure, but it's just what I did. So just save that on your PC so you won't lose it, and don't show it to anyone. I won't be showing mine either. Once you've done that, if you've just made your OpenAI account, you're also gonna want to go to billing and set up a payment method, as using the API and using let's say ChatGPT over the API is actually going to cost you something. It's not going to cost you much. It's like you can go to the pricing. Let's say ChatGPT 4 is a bit more expensive, but ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo, it's 0.002 cents or euros or dollars per 1K tokens, which is like nothing. Alright. So, now that we've got a new scene, we're going to want to actually populate it with something. First of all, since we want to be using the API, we're going to go to Window and Package Manager. Click on this plus sign here and add package from Git URL. Here you're going to copy the HTTPS link I've copied before, and just click add, and that will import this OpenAI Unity package. If you're lazy, you can just go to samples and click on ChatGPT and import that. That will actually give you a scene with basically what we're going to be doing right now, just already there. But I'm still going to show you how to set it up yourself. So what you're going to want to do is just create some kind of UI here. So I'm gonna quickly just make a raw image, make that big, so we have a little background. Make it like gray so it's not so hard on the eyes. By the way, if you want to quickly access this window, just press on Alt. It also sets the position there. Okay, then we want two things. We want two little text objects, and this one we're gonna put up here. Let's dupe that and just put it in the middle. So we're gonna have two texts here, and for both of these we're just gonna set this to like 30 and this to be white. Okay, so our text has disappeared because we don't have big enough boundaries for them. So let's just increase that real quick. Let's click on the other text, increase that. Alright, so now we've got our little scene here, and one other thing we're gonna need is a input field, so we can actually write something there. We're just gonna put that at the bottom. So that's basically all we're gonna want. I'm just gonna call this text human dialogue, and this is robot dialogue. since we're going to be changing this text to what we're saying and this text to what the ChatGPT is going to be answering. Okay, so now it's time to write our script. We're just quickly going to delete this. And we're going to create a new C# script. I'm going to call this communication. You can call it whatever, but I'm just going to call it this. But before we do that, I'm just going to quickly go to one other thing we need to do. You're going to want to go to your files. Go to whichever system you've got Unity installed on, go to users, then pick your user, and then within this file you're going to want to create this .openai folder. So just right click, create new folder and name it .openai. Within this you're going to want to create this little file. I'm just going to quickly show you how to do that. You're going to want to click on create new and a text document, and you're just going to call this off, and then you can edit the end here to make it a .json file. Now of course this is going to want me to change what I've already got, but do that. If you can't see the .text or the .json, then you're simply just going to want to click on view and show file name extensions here. See, if I click that, it disappears and then it appears again. And within this auth.json file, you're going to want to put your API key. Now, this is my personal one, and as I've said, you shouldn't show this to anyone. But this is where you're going to put it. One other thing is you can put in here is your company name. So for that, you'd simply write company and then put that in there. Of course, you need a comma before it. So company, and then write your company name in there. I'm not going to use one, so I'm not going to put one there. Alright, so that's just the access point for where the API from Unity is going to get the API key from. Okay. Oh, something I should mention, you can also just put that in the script. You don't have to create this folder and this auth.json file, but it's just way simpler and it's safer because you, if you put it in the code, if someone sees the code, then, well, they're going to steal the API key. Okay, so let's go into our script. Alright, so once we're in our code, we're going to do a few things to start. First of all, we're not going to need the start function, so we're going to delete that. Also, we're going to import the Unity engine.ui package, because we're going to need to interact with the UI. And then third of all, third things first, no. We're just quickly gonna put our class in the namespace OpenAI, put that in brackets, and then quickly just cut out our class and put that in there. So this will tell the API that we're actually gonna be working with the OpenAI AI package. Alright, so now we're gonna create some variables to start with. First of all, we're going to create the OpenAI API access point. So we're gonna write it like this, and then call it OpenAI, something like this, and instantiate a new access point. And I believe in here you can actually put your API key if you didn't want to create that folder. Since we didn't do that though, we're going to leave it like this, and it's actually small here, lowercase. Now, we're also going to need to access our input field. And our two texts. And we'll call this bot text or something like that. And then for functionality, we're going to be creating a list of chat messages This is an object that the API actually creates for you. So a chat message is basically just an object that carries a few informations that we would normally have to put in there manually if we weren't using the API. Alright, so once we've instantiated that list, we're also going to want a little string. You can make this public or you can make this private, it doesn't really matter. We're going to call this personality. And what this string is going to do, we're going to put this string basically in front of whatever message we're going to send to ChatGPT first. So this is basically what's going to define our character. So I've written some small thing up here. Just act as if you were a wounded old man who just gained a leg injury because of a fall and reply to the questions. This whole reply to the questions thing is very important because otherwise ChatGPT would just see what you've written and then like act as if he was an old man, ask himself questions, answer as the old man, ask himself another question. Basically just make a story up where a person is talking to an old man. But we want ChatGPT to realize that we are going to be asking the questions and he just replies, or they just reply. And so we just have to write and reply to the questions. One thing to mention here, this is kind of fickle. So you're gonna have to look for yourself for some prompts that actually work, because just saying reply to the questions, if you don't write a question first, for example, ChatGPT might act weirdly. Also, some things to add here: don't break character, don't ever mention you're an AI model, just to keep the immersion. Okay, so now we can start coding. First things first, in the update function, we're just going to check for some inputs. Actually, just one input, since we're just making a little, something to show how this works. So we're going to get key down, then key code, and we just want return. So when we press enter, we want something to happen. And we'll put what's going to happen in there later. And we're going to create two little functions. First, we're going to call display message. So this isn't really going to be interacting with ChatGPT at all. This is just going to display what ChatGPT writes back and what we write in these little text fields here. So display message, we want to also pass in there our chat message. Just call that message so we can use it. And then we want to create an if statement. If the message we're passing in here dot role, so the message is going to have the property role, if that is equal to user, so we're going to define some messages that we write as having the role user, and if it doesn't have that, we want to just write it in the bottom text. If it does, we want to write it in the top text. So here we're going to say player texts. So what we've defined up here, player text dot texts equals message dot content. So this is basically the role equivalent of what the chat message actually contains. And otherwise, we just want to get the bot texts dot texts and set that equal to message dot content. Because if it isn't marked as having the role user, it's gonna come from ChatGPT. So we want this to be our answer, basically. Okay, so with that done, we're going to create a second function. And we're gonna call that send message. Now, one really important thing to do here is actually make this an asynchronous function. Async. What that is going to allow us to do is to basically whenever this method is called, Unity goes to your CPU or GPU and tells them, okay, we're going to run this autonomously. This is going to run on a different thread, and we're going to still be able to check updates and continue with our game while this was running like basically parallel to other functions. This is going to be important because we're going to send a request to ChatGPT and wait for it in one go within this message, within this function. Alright, so within here we're going to just quickly create our player message. Now within this message we don't really want to write anything in here because everything, like the content of the message, is actually going to come from our input field, which we've put down here. Alright, so we're going to create a new chat message, make the role of it be user, and the content should equal our input field dot text. That's basically it. This is how you create a new chat message. This just creates the object that we're going to send to ChatGPT. Then we're going to want to display this message. Display message, player message. And now we're going to do this little trick with the personality. So if our messages, so the list we've created up here, if that dot count, so the length of it, is equal to 0, then we want to actually put, like, append the personality to our player message. So player message dot content should be our personality plus our input field of text. So what this does is basically it creates a message with our with the role and the user, with the role being user, then puts that content in there, and then displays basically only our input field. But in the back end, we're actually going to send some more data with it, so ChatGPT can actually know what it's acting as and what it's doing. So afterwards we will add this message to our messages. So if you're thinking with me right here, you're gonna notice these messages are basically a backlog, or gonna be a backlog of all of the messages we're going to be sending back and forth. Because each new request to ChatGPT isn't going to be like having like a dialogue with ChatGPT. Is like, wait, let me just quickly go to ChatGPT. Right, it isn't going to be like a dialogue right here, where ChatGPT knows what we've said before. So right here we can just ask, could you please be more creative? Because it's already got the backlog of what we've asked him. So this is why we need the messages list. So we can basically just freshen him up on everything we've said, and then wait for his response there. Alright, so we've added our message to our messages, and now we can actually just reset the input field. Now this isn't necessary, but it just looks better, in my opinion. Now this is where the magic happens. We're going to create a variable called completion requests. And this is where the asynchronous function gets important, because we're going to use the keyword await. So we're going to await for this request to finish, get our OpenAI access point, create chat completion. That's the function we're going to use, and within this we're going to have a new create chat completion requests. So we're going to create a new request within here, which we're going to send to OpenAI. Now, two things we need to put in here. First, the model we're going to use. So this is where you define if you wanted to use ChatGPT 4 or whatever other version. I'm going to use 3.5 Turbo. because it's cheaper. But you're gonna notice once we get into the scene and actually try it out, this is quite slow. So if you wanted to have a faster response time, you might want to use a different version of ChatGPT. Alright, this is basically just creating a request, and within this completion request we're going to have the answer from ChatGPT, or multiple answers actually. So now we can create an if statement, and within that if statement we're just gonna quickly check if ChatGPT actually found an answer. If he hasn't, so if the if the completion requested choices are null, or if the completion requested choices dot count dot choices dot count are 0, we're going to want to do nothing, so we're quickly going to check that those are above 0 and not null. Because if ChatGPT doesn't find an answer, where this whole code we're going to put in here would just throw an error. So we're going to create a new message and just have this be the first answer that ChatGPT found to whatever request we gave him. Completion request dot choices. This is actually an array, so we're just going to pick the first one, dot message, and then get the message, so the content from it. So message dot content, and what we're going to do now is just quickly go to the message's content and just trim that. So remove any extra spaces or stuff that might have been added to the end or the front of it, so it just looks proper. And now we can just go to messages and add that, or go to our list and add this new message and display the message. And that's basically it. Now we quickly just want to go back to our input and update function and just say, once we press enter, we just want to send a message. So send message. And that's basically it. So now if you go back to Unity, probably gonna have some errors because of course we do. Now this is 3914. So let's go to line 39. Of course, I just forgot a semicolon, and I think that's the only one. Quickly save that, and we probably made some writing errors as well. Messages, create chat completion requests. Where is this? Complete toin. Completion requests. That should be fine. Create chat completion requests. Alright, this has to be messages since we were putting a list in there. There's also an error here somewhere. 52 messages, of course, put messages in there. And this player message 59. There we go. All right. So once we've ironed out those little mistakes we've had there, I'm just quickly going to save the scene so we don't have any issues here. So now we're in our scene. One thing left to do, just create a little empty game object. I'm gonna call this game master, you can call it whatever, and add our script component to it. And then we're going to quickly drag in human dialogue to player text, robot dialog to bot text, and our input field to this. And as you can see, you can change the personality of your personality string right here in the editor. Okay, so we're gonna quickly click play and hope everything works. So everything's running. You can enter some text in here. I'm just gonna ask quickly, hello, how are you doing? And I've probably got the wrong keyboard. Yeah, I do. And as you can see, after a couple of seconds, we get an answer. So that's basically it. Now you know how to quickly just connect your ChatGPT account or your OpenAI account to Unity and use the API. I'll also leave a link to the actual GitHub repository there. There's some more information about it. And yeah, that'll be it.